Hello, I am Dorgan Kishu, Paladin and Dragon Rider. Welcome to Dragon Riders Around the Watch D&D Talk. This is the first episode of this week and the second week that I've been doing these live streams, just talking about D&D. Really enjoyed it last week. The session, there's no general rule yet, but these usually run around. If there's nobody in chat, these will generally last about 12 minutes. I'll usually have some kind of D&D topic. But if we talk to chat, we had the last episode that we ran last week. I talked to a really great guy about D&D, and the show was about an hour. So it's really depends on who shows up and who doesn't. Either way, it'll be available on my Twitch channel if you want to watch it later. And I'm also uploaded to my YouTube, and I'll put all that in my Twitter. So I decided today that my content would be. Let me just peek to make sure there's not already somebody in chat. Nope. I decided that I've talked about this before. I have a 5-group D&D campaign that I run pretty much every other Sunday. Sometimes it's every third, or sometimes it's 2 weeks in a row. But generally, around every couple weeks, we play on a Sunday. And it's 5 people that I met on Twitter. 4 of them are from Twitter. One of them is my girlfriend, Kate. And the sessions it's been just really a lot of fun, especially playing with people that I've known 2 or 3 years on Twitter. It's nice to just be playing with them as opposed to just, liking each other's tweets or whatever. Yeah, so I thought I would talk a little bit about my sessions since I had one on the Sunday. And to give you a little bit of, tell you a little bit about the campaign. And I may have mentioned this before, but several years ago, I created a level 5 campaign in case I ever was in a situation where somebody was over, my brother or whatever, and we could just play a level 5 campaign, or not campaign. I wouldn't call it a one-shot, but it was an adventure. And it was an adventure that I created. It was about a hobgoblin there. So yeah. So what I did is this campaign that I'm running every other Sunday started out as a Twitter campaign. It was just I just love playing. I felt like I wasn't playing enough. I like playing. I literally like to play 3 or 4 times a week. Have not been playing that, but that's me. I like it a lot. But anyway, so at that time, I think I was playing maybe a couple times a week, but I wanted to play more, so I started a Twitter D&D, and where people would just kind of post when they could in this group. And then I noticed people were able to post a lot, so it was really moving forward. And then I started to notice when people weren't able to post much, it started to feel like, I really want to wait around for that person. So I decided to just schedule a time so we could have everybody there. And now this is my first D&D campaign that I've ever ran online. I've played online. I've ran campaigns in my teens and in my 20s and in my 40s. This one I'm running for my girlfriend is a few years old. But this is the first time I actually ran a campaign online. I've wanted to for a while, and I love it. I'm using Discord for that one. I've also ran my module for some people I met, D&D people I met on TikTok. I ran my Frost From module on Roll20. That was also awesome. I've been a player on Roll20 in my girlfriend's campaign for a while, but that campaign is on hold right now because we lost one of the main players. So that's a little bit of background on that. So basically, we started out this campaign. I have a homebrew material world, but I also have a second material world, which is the Forgotten Realms. So I have 2 material planes in my game, in my universe, or whatever you want to call it. So we took one of the 6 or 7 continents that I have in my material plane was where the first adventure went, where they went and it was about a hobgoblin lair, et cetera, but it ended up being that this hobgoblin believed in the same god as the cleric in the party, who was a dragonborn cleric of Tempest. And so it ends up, instead of him being the enemy, he was actually not. He was an ally. So, and during all that, the cleric heard from Tempest, and basically he wants him to get together champions and send them to this other land in this material realm, gather champions for his god. So this Torbaloi, this hobgoblin warlord, ended up being the first champion that he would send to court. Oh my gosh, these words. Quorium is the name of the place. Yeah, we had to travel across the lands, and I'm currently running an NPC in that group. Actually, I run more than one, but there's one main one right now that's kind of part of the group. Is the ranger, tiefling ranger. I should tell you the group real quick. So it's a Cleric of Tempest, is a red dragonborn. And then we have, I keep wanting to say Tigran, but there's basically a cat person. And it's like a white leopard, and that's played by one player. And they are a monk. And then we have another monk who's a wood elf. And then we have a rogue played by my girlfriend that is a half tiefling, half elf. Yeah, so it's really unique looking. And then let's see, who am I forgetting? And then, oh yes, of course, our wizard. I think he's a high elf wizard. Played one of my friends, and he's been great. Yeah, so we had to travel a lot of land to get this champion down to what's called Dwarf Port, which is a port that would take a ship to Quarium, which would take weeks or months to get there. And the thing about Quarium is you can't. It's like a land. It's like a demi-plane. It's half in a material plane. It's half in an ethereal plane. So, and it's surrounded by a dome of magic. And the only way you can enter this plane into this land, Quarium, is if by going, like literally going there physically. You can't just teleport into it. There's an exception, I will say, which actually happened recently, and that is that a god was allowed to deliver people there. But beside gods, regular teleportations does not go into this land. You have to travel there. So you can teleport nearby and then go, but either way, you have to, go through that magic circle physically. Let me just check chat real quick, make sure there's not somebody out there right now. Not right now. All right, yeah. So, and anyway, the group delivered Torbaloy. They had lots of situations come up, but they did deliver Torbaloy to Dwarf Port. Then they were waiting around for a captain of a ship to take them to Quarium. And but the cleric heard from his god and Tempest, and anyway, bottom line is so did Torbaloy. Torbaloy heard from the god actually and said, "I'm going to travel alone to Quarium, to a temple out there, Tempest, a temple of Tempest, yeah." And then that the cleric was meant to stay in Dwarfport and would potentially find another champion, or the way to another champion. So they're going to wait in the town, and there was a rough go of it. Their monk, one of their monks, the cat folk monk, fought in the arena. There was an arena in this town. It's dwarven. It's called Dwarfport, so it's a dwarven town. But there's a lot of stuff there. The rogue made some money stealing stuff. The wizard got some cool spells from a shop, and then like I said, the monk got in a fight, and the other monk, Wood Elf, struggled. Being in a big city, it was really overwhelming. She's just kind of froze up. Yeah, and they had some troubles there with an enemy that they made along the way. And so they got exiled out of Dwarfport. And on the outskirts of Dwarfport, I'm trying to remember this part, actually. I'm trying to remember the order of things. At some point, they visited something called the Third Plane. And it's a whole other plane that I created for this campaign. And I just call it the Third Plane at this point. Very different, very, I don't want to say celestial, but it has a magic, there's gods, and it's more, and it seems like there's a lot of, it's almost mythological kind of creatures and people, definitely a Greek feeling to it, Greek, and which, well, I can tell you the rogue doesn't like it at all. They're out in this kind of white desert with golden, little twinkly golden white sands. And but the bottom line is that supposedly there was a potential second champion for the cleric to find there. So they went and spoke to this champion, and the champion served a different god named Perforce, and god of the forge. And Tempest, for those of you who don't know, I believe he's the god of war. It might be some other things too, but I know he's a god of war. But yeah, so this other god, this champion, very Greek-looking guy with he actually was built from the forge. He was brought to life in the forge, so he has like a golden red skin, very tall and muscular. Like I said, kind of like a Hercules type, but not strong like Hercules, but definitely above average human. But he wanted to be his god Perforce really thought highly of Tempest, and so this champion wanted to prove himself that he could be one of Tempest's champions in the name of Perforce. But they needed to prove himself. They all had it, so they all did a quest to a temple which is inside a volcano. Apparently, these priests of Perforce had disappeared. They stopped praying, so they're supposed to go check out why the prayer stopped. The god communicated with his champion that the prayer had stopped, and he wanted him to prove himself to Perforce and also to Tempest by going questing. And then the others went with them. They received a ruby apiece to kind of compensate the risk of traveling because they're basically traveling with this possible champion just to see if he deserves to be a champion of Tempest. So yeah, so they made a little money. They got rubies. But I will say that the rogue in our group definitely did not like this place and didn't trust anybody, and just very, probably prefers being in the city and things like that as opposed to just being in some kind of almost dreamlike plane. So they traveled and they found themselves. They ran into different creatures that are normally allied to Perforce and to the champion, but they ended up having to fight some of those. And they reached the volcano, and then they went inside, and these priests protect these scrolls that have different kinds of weapon designs on them. And 2 of the scrolls have been stolen, and 5 of the 6 priests were found dead. And they went into the main forge inside. And I should also mention, this also used to be Perforce's. The god Perforce used to be his home on this plane, but he now lives in a different plane. But he, when they were inside this large forge area, the door was shut, and a red dragon spoke to them, came out of the lava and spoke to them, and blocked the door and took a deep breath. He had the worst initiative, though, out of the group, so the whole group was able to move out of the way and avoid, except for the wizard got a little damage. The rest of them were able to avoid the thing. But yeah, so they battled an adult red dragon, which totally took them off guard. This is kind of all the stuff that's leading up to this session. I was going to talk about my session, but I thought I should kind of give you the history of this thing. At some point, they decided we need to get out of here. And maybe the DM, I thought, I think that they'll probably lose at least a couple party members if they keep fighting this red dragon. And maybe they could have been, healed, or who knows. But these guys were level 7, and but there was about 8 of them fighting against this adult dragon, so they were doing okay. But yeah, so they figured out a way. The rogue was able to unlock the big doors that were holding them in. They were able to, and then the wizard was able to throw up a sand wall and help block some of the view of the dragon, or at least make it encumbered a bit, so that the people went around it to get out. And they escaped the red dragon. That was a session that was I think a month ago. And and then we started this last couple days ago, Sunday session, in a cave through some tunnels on the side of the volcano. And so that's where that's kind of, let me just check chat real quick again. Nope. Alrighty. That's kind of where we started. From that point, the cleric of Tempest was communicated in his dreams by Perforce. Perforce basically talked to him, basically indicated, you're a great cleric, you serve your god well, but your god is a god of war. I don't know if you're really that interested in war. I'm a god of the forge, and I create things, and we could really use you in the third plane. We have these minotaurs from the north that are building an army. They're going to come down and attack the main 3 cities of the plane. In fact, the 6th priest that had stolen the 2 scrolls and headed north to deliver these scrolls to that Minotaur army, who serve a god, a very powerful god. I think it's Mogis, Mogis, or something like that. They were going to enhance their weapons to make their army, give them an edge over in battle and war and trying to conquer the third plane. So he was, he wasn't pushy about it, but Perforce made it clear that he would like him to join him, leave his god and join him in this cause to defend the third plane, etc. And I don't think that the cleric was very interested, but he's curious about all this, but he wasn't necessarily. Now, he was going to he thought, he might join the champion. Okay, the champion Perforce was reached by his god, and the god said, you need to go get these scrolls from this priest before he delivers them to these minotaurs. So he had to go no matter what. He didn't expect any of the other group to go with. And he'd already proved himself as a champion to Tempest and to Perforus, but he had to finish this thing for his own god. But then the other, like the rogue and some of the other people, they're kind of like, well, what do we get out of this? I mean, we want to help our cleric buddy, but now this situation is different. And they kind of, I think they would have gone just to support him. But so then Perforus decided to sweeten the deal, and he allowed Ulysses, who's the Perforus champion, he actually is a weapon builder. He builds weapons for the champions of Perforus. He allowed him to improve all of their weapons. So he did. He took them to the forge, and he improved all of their weapons as payment for them to travel north. And so they traveled north, and they went through this pass of Cyclops and rolled really well between being invisible or pass without a trace or good stealth rolls. They just were able to get all the way through this 12-hour pass between these huge mountains without having to fight any Cyclops. In addition, they determined that the Red Dragon was following them. It wasn't attacking them, but they would hear it fly over during the night sometimes, and so they were scared badly. They're terrified by this Red Dragon, of course. But anyway, they got through, and then they found also the and this is a lot of information. I don't know. You can watch this if you want. But anyway, the priest for Forest, the one that had betrayed the god, was traveling on a large bull, and he ran into some minotaurs, and now he was camping with them. That's where the group they found them. So they were going to try to. There was about 6 minotaurs plus a larger, stronger, more powerful minotaur leader. And they were going to try to, they didn't want to engage in battle, so they sent the rogue in with one of the monks, and also the wizard's familiar, which was a little mouse, white mouse, sent them in to check out the camp, and after all of them were asleep except, well, there were ones on guard, but the ones in camp were asleep except for the main one. He was sitting there staring into the fire. They decided to try to have the rogue try to get in there and find the scrolls. First he checked the priest who was sleeping, then he kind of checked out this stronger minotaur while he was awake, but just really stealthed well around, was never detected. And then they finally determined that it was on the bull itself. And apparently they just assumed whoever traveled to that temple was going to die from the Red Dragon. They didn't think they were being followed, so they didn't get super careful about where they kept the scrolls. They just had them on the bull. So they got the scrolls. They gave them to the Perforus champion to take back to his temple. Not the volcano temple, but the temple that he started at, where the whole group started at in third plane. And in the end, the cleric decided he does not want to join Perforus. He wants to continue serving Tempest. And so there's this lady called the Teller. I forget her name, but that's kind of like she's known as the Teller. She was able to teleport them back to the material plane. So Perforus wasn't pushy about it. He said, if you want to leave, the Teller who serves all the gods in the third plane will take you back to the outskirts of Dwarfport, or you can come back to this temple and serve me. But he decided at the end of the session on Sunday that he wants to continue to serve Tempest. So they went through the portal, but then, as opposed to going to the outskirts of Dwarfport, the Tempest took them from that portal. That they went into the portal, and Tempest took them and ported them to Quarium, which is the city where they're supposed to bring all the champions. And so the end of the session was that the group landed in Quarium in front of these temples, the Temple of Tempest. And then the Tempest indicated that the second champion that we were supposed to meet in Dwarfport was not this champion that you met in the third plane, but it was this paladin who was actually been traveling with them, a paladin warrior who served a god that is allied with Tempest. He is the second champion. So they came to find out this guy had been traveling with them, that has really been an ally to the cleric, and is actually the champion that Tempest had in mind. So that'll be the beginning of the next session. We have to determine what this guy's going to do, because he's even though he serves an ally god to Tempest, he's kind of traveled away from his god. His god was in Forgotten Realms, and the paladin, that is, and he had traveled to my material plane and was just kind of seeking adventure, drinking a lot, and but when he saw the opportunity to help the cleric in his cause and also have an adventure himself, he went with them, and now he's going to have to decide if he's going to want to be a champion of Tempest. So that'll all happen next session. That is enough about all that. You're all caught up, so the next time we play in a couple weeks, I'll probably update you on one of these Dragon Talks, but around the watch. That is, sorry, not Dragon Talk. I call it Dragon Talk. Great. I think that's the Wizard of the Coast, the name of their show. Whoops. No, that was a mistake. Okay, I'm just going to peek real quick. There's nobody in chat right now, so nobody to talk to. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it. I shared, I updated you on my campaign. So on occasion, my D&D talks will be updates on my campaigns. My main goal with this channel is that I do want to actually stream a live campaign on here. And my girlfriend and I, Kate, we'll probably be doing that at some point. I'll DM or she'll DM, or we'll run 2 campaigns or each. Probably just to start out, we'll probably just have each other as players, and we don't have any immediate plans for a full group. I would love to do that at some point because I love group play. But at first, it may just be one of us DMing the other, and I know that that's maybe not as people might prefer groups, but the hope is that maybe it's a little different. Maybe someone will enjoy that too. So either way, I probably want to do that at some point. Until then, I'm going to be doing these around the watch D&D talks probably several times a week, and I don't have a schedule yet. But at this point, it's been running somewhere around 8:15 or later. This one started a little later, after 9. So I appreciate you checking this out. And I have my social media links down in my channel, so you can, if you want to follow me on Twitter and all that. I tweet about this stuff, and it will be going on YouTube, of course. And once it goes on YouTube, you're welcome to ask me any questions that you like about any of this, or if you have any suggestions for topics, that's great, because the topics are secondary to me talking to chat about D&D. That is the main reason this exists. The topics are here so we have some subject matter for when the people aren't in chat, but also we can talk about the subject matter with chat as well. So the main thing is talking to people. So I'm going to end this, and I appreciate checking it out. And you guys have a good week, and I'll be or come see me tomorrow or whenever I run the next one. Thanks a lot.